Greetings YouTube, welcome to the first chapter video and the second selection video of the Chapters from Notes channel. Now today I will be reading out the chapter to you, the first chapter that you'll ever hear of the Chapters from Notes channel. Except there is a bit of a problem. Now I got a bit overzealous in writing what I did, and unfortunately it's now too long to fit into the 10 minutes I am allotted. 10 minutes are allotted to me for two reasons. One is the memory capacity on this camera, because it's 8.1 megapixels, so it's kind of a lot of data, so I can't really put lots of stuff on here. The other reason is that YouTube only gives me 10 minutes, something I'm repeatedly frustrated about. But yeah, only 10 minutes, so I can't really read the whole thing to you. But there is a solution. The solution, fortunately, is that I have recently created the Chapters from Notes blog, which is linked to in the sidebar of the channel, and I will leave a link in the sidebar here, and you know where it is, so I'm not going to point because I'll only make a fool of myself. And therefore, you can go to the blog, and when this video is finished, I will upload it to the blog, the full chapter, so you can read it there. In the meantime here, I'm going to read you a short extract from it. Now before we continue, I'd just like to make a few housekeeping things. Firstly, a big thank you to my 16 current subscribers. They're very appreciated for them. Keep subscribing. And yeah, it's been very cool. Keep watching, keep making chapter suggestions, and also, continuing on nicely, a very big thank you to everyone who made chapter suggestions this week. We've had about 40 odd, and it's been very helpful. I'm very appreciated. We're now up to 106 in the book. So in here are all the numbers between 1 and 106. So yes, excellent. Now, back to the video. I'm going to read you a short selection from this chapter. Okay. Of course, the cause of her fuming was not merely the continued pumping of high-level infrared radiation from the thermonuclear fireball that sat some few dozen millions of miles away. It was also a level of frustration towards the Saturday morning rota, or rather the complete failure of those on it and those who had drew it up to plan properly. It had been set up by the boss and had fallen flat on its face since it involved everyone being there absolutely every time they were needed. Unfortunately, the management had failed to consider the trinity of employee rights, as granted by the Department of Work and Pensions, infectious bacteria and viruses, and just general bone idleness. The restructuring had principally been based on the idea that no one should be considered an alternate or a stand-in for two reasons. The first was a kind of namby-pamby politically correct one, where the employers felt that they would be hurting someone's feelings if they labelled them anything less than the first person on duty. And the second was they were running on the logic that if you give people more responsibilities, they will behave more responsibly. A noble truth, but one that didn't really fit in with the context it was currently being applied in. On the bank of 7 tills that had been set up on this floor, only 2 were currently occupied. Janet, who was supposed to be there, had, as far as Jane could tell, skived off. She hadn't taken any sick leave, and she'd spoken to her on the phone the day before, and she'd been fine. So unless she'd come down with a debilitating illness in the last 12 hours or so, her absence wasn't terribly well justified. Lazy bimbo cow was the expression that came to mind when Jane thought of her. She was short, with long, slightly wavy golden blonde hair, had an irritating almond-shaped cutesy face, and had disproportionately ample chest for her frame. Jane wouldn't be surprised if she wasn't spending the stolen time with some unsuspecting young gentleman who was, of course, beguiled by her exquisite personality, even if all she used her limited supply of brain cells for storing was the latest news from the Big Brother house. Josh, Jane already knew about. He was actually sick and had been for the past week. His symptoms, which had appeared meningitis-like, had made his parents rush into the local hospital. She didn't harbour anything against his absence, though she did wish that his parents hadn't told her about this the last night. Had she known a bit earlier, she could have called someone to take up the slack, but it wasn't their fault. The last thing on any parent's mind in a crisis like this was their son's weekend place of employment not having its full staff quota that day. Jane sincerely hoped Josh was okay. Apart from her general goodwill towards him as a member of humanity, she harboured something of a slowly growing crush on him, what with his thick, raggedy hair, a slight goatee beard he was nursing, and sexy, if slightly nerdy, glasses. And she was pleased to see that he wasn't interested in Janet's line of conversation, proving to her satisfaction that good cleavage was not as hypnotic to the testosterone-infused 50% of humanity as many may have her believe. As for John, Jack, they had registered their sick leave along with Jessie, but Jane knew exactly where they were. They had headed to Thorpe Park that day, and been MSNing her about it all last night. In truth, had she been able to, she would have gone too, but she was in her gap year and was saving the money for the start of university. So here she was, only her and James manning the till today, and it was getting manic. It was possibly the single 3 worst combinations of periods of time for the shop to be understaffed. Study leave had just kicked in, so all the pre-GCSEers who should rightfully be at home chained to their books, literally in Jane's opinion, were in fact cluttering up North End with the intention of spending their parents' money in more droves than usual, now that they had the extra time to do so. Also, it was Saturday, so those who had spent the week properly revising were now feeling justified in their efforts and pouring forth off the buses into town, and it was summer, which meant that those people who thought getting outside meant swarming into the temples of consumerism would be arriving also. In fairness, Jane thought, she wasn't exactly immune from the hypocrisy in some of these complaints. When she had been on GCSE study leave, she had to admit that she had done her fair share of Whitgift-centred browsing, while she really should have been reading up on Klaus von Stauffenberg, quadratics, and the properties of the human heart. However, she was convinced that some of these people had been here 3 times in the last week, and thought that unless they were doing some kind of study into the economic systems of Croydon's commercial regions, it was a bit excessive, to say the least. She shuddered slightly as one of the regular visitors over the last few days made her slow, sweaty way towards the till desk. So I hope you enjoyed that chapter suggestion, that chapter extract rather. So now we're going to go to the chapter suggestions, which I just accidentally mentioned, and we're going to make a selection. So let's poke around at them with a fork. I'm not showing any Prague today because, well, I thought you'd be interested enough in the chapter. Okay, let's seem to have stirred them up a bit. Right, let's make a gander there. Number 85. 85. Let's see what number 85 is. Okay, number 85. Ooh, looks wrong way out. 85. Number 85 is... The sword was mightier than the pen. The sword was mightier than the pen. In truth, I was a bit sort of nervous about this week, because this is the first time I'm going to have to actually make the chapter fit next. The sword was mightier than the pen, chapter 8, number 85. Okay, this is going to be interesting. But I shall endeavour to do my best to make the new chapter this week. So I hope you've enjoyed that extract. If you go to the Chapters from Notes blog, you'll see the whole chapter there. And I hope you enjoy that. Leave comments in the blog or indeed in the video once you've looked. And as always, more chapter suggestions, please. I really very much appreciate it. And also, if you can pass it on to friends and whatever, that'd be appreciated too. So, thank you very much. Goodbye.